Hey, just kind of thinking, and I thought, let me capture this. Don't know if I'm going to share it as is from this video or not. I'll turn this way into it because it's so much more beautiful this way. Just down here at the river, recognizing that my life is so different and changing. And, one of the things that we talk about is before there can be a rebirth, there has to be endings. And I have been so into being a mom that part of my life, I'm still a mom, but the actual part where I'm really invested in my children's lives, it's over. It's not ending, it's over. And they are grown. Even though my younger son, he's only 21, almost 22, they need us for a good little while after they graduate. It's still so much growing up they have to do. But he is moving to live with his brother. He's not going to be here with us, and I'm grateful for that. My older son just got married, so, he has a wife. I have a daughter-in-law. And it's just hands off. It's just hands off. And that has really, it's come at a time when I'm having a major New Beginnings transit. And just kind of reckoning with that. And realizing that I've got to start doing my own thing. And it feels like where I left off, not everything, because of course I'm how much older now? My older son is 24, almost 25. So I can't pick up where I left off because, I was in my 30s. But there is a part of where I left off. I'm going to pick it back up because I need to get back into my health and wellness. I've always been a health nut. And it kind of felt like I had done so much that it's just a little bit of a turnoff. But it's just kind of like a part of who I am. It's a part of my makeup. I have Venus in the 6th house, which is all about lifestyle and health and wellness and that kind of thing. Always wanted my own business, so, pouring myself into that since motherhood has shifted. It's very shifted. And what made me pick up the phone and start talking is I've said to myself, we're taught in business you need to niche down for the most part. I know some people are like, I ain't niching down. But, one of my coaches says we don't follow the rules. And I really am somebody who is multi-passionate. So one of the things I want to do is teach fitness. And I was just kind of talking to Yay. About if I'm really supposed to help people have a business, I really need a sign. And I'm going to tell you what made me this weekend say, I've got to start talking to people about how to have a business. I have been caught up in multi-level marketing. And it's like there's stuff that I've done and then things are getting reckoned with. No disrespect, but veganism, vegetarianism. Veganism and vegetarianism might not even be the same thing. But anywho, I was definitely on that path many, many years. I started in my early 20s, started changing the way that I eat. And eventually found these books. The Diamonds, if you know that book. It's this book that ends with the name Diamond. I had a friend who introduced me to this book. And it was all about the heart. And I was just at this point where being healthy it's just a natural part of what I've done. I started working out when I was 10 years old. Me and my neighbor Candace, we would work out and we would diet at 10. And it was fun. It wasn't like Candace was a little bit more, she wasn't overweight. But as a little black girl, some of us are going to be a little bit thickish, even as little girls. And so, she thought she was overweight. She was not. But back then she did. And so me and her would exercise together. It's so freaking hilarious to me that we were exercising at 10. So that's like 1980. So I've always had this propensity ever since I was a little girl for, eating a certain way. I would exercise with my mom. We would power walk. When I went off to college, I would power walk. It was just so much that I would do. And I also started saying things like, okay, I don't want to eat pork. I don't want to eat beef. Because, we would just learn all these different things. And by the time I got to grad school, I met a friend who gave me this book that I was telling y'all about. And that's what started kind of taking me down this path of veganism. And I was a vegetarian / vegan is what I call myself. Because it would be a lot of days I would go with no dairy. But if I wanted to eat dairy or eggs, there were days I was going to eat dairy and eggs. I was definitely radical. And even that, when I was at Spelman College, I found this company called Nature Sunshine Products. Still buy the products from them. I started using vitamins when I was in my 20s. I was kind of run down, and I went to something that's not around anymore, but I want to just honor it, National Black Women's Health Project. There was a woman I got to see. She was the first physician assistant I ever met, black woman. And I was like, I feel run down. And she said, you want me to tell you what you need? You need some vitamins. I don't typically do this, but I'm going to send you to my little vitamin lady. This lady's name was Frankie. She probably was in her 50s when I met her. And Frankie showed me, she took me through muscle testing and got me on all these vitamins or whatever. I've been using Nature Sunshine pretty much ever since. And so, all of that, I just started finding myself in these different groups where vegetarianism became a big thing. I became a vegetarian, I think at 24. By the time I started having kids, I was like, vegetarianism is not going to work for me because my body was just getting too depleted birthing babies. So I never went back to it, but I always felt guilty about it. And I want to say it was around 2017. I started finding, all it takes is the internet, baby. Somebody get upset with one group, they will show all the flaws. And even at that point, I was 47 and just like feeling like a failure that I never went back to being a vegan. And at that point, my older son was 17. And I'm like, girl, well, it was really with my younger son. So at that point, he was 14. At some point, you got to give up the guilt, baby, and just live your life, right? But I found all these anti-vegan videos made by carnivores who I think that these extreme diets are for people, or they help people who have trauma. And I had a lot of trauma, and I think that was part of the reason. It helps you to be in complete control. And so it was like I had this reckoning where it was like, I will never feel guilty for not being a vegetarian ever again. I don't have a problem with people who want to be a vegetarian or who live the vegetarian lifestyle or eat that way or whatever. But I definitely think that some people should take time to really understand, what is this all about? The more we learn about the things that we're a part of, especially if you get excommunicated, if you think you're better than somebody because of what you're doing, you might want to reconsider what you're doing. Something is wrong. And I'm going to say this. You might be in a cult, because I'm going to segue to something else. So that was the first real reckoning that I remember having. And here lately, I want to say for the last year, well, no, maybe 2 years, year and a half, I have been having a reckoning with two things: spirituality and MLMs, because I have been a part of so many multi-level marketing companies. And so, well, I'll start with the MLMs, because it sort of was me looking into the MLM. This lady who's anti-MLM, that's a real big movement right now. Like I said, just let people get disgruntled. Let people have an awakening. They will do all the exposing. And I thought, MLM is a cult? What? Beachbody was the one she had been a part of. You know, I've been a part of Beachbody. I've been a part of multiple ones. Avon, Advocare. Those are the big ones. Nature Sunshine, which they didn't push the MLM part as much. But definitely Advocare was the one I was in the deepest. My husband was a part of Beachbody. And Avon, which I've never done Avon super hard. But anywho, the connection is this. Those Advocare and Beachbody, I think, became more cult-like after I was like, yeah, I'm not going to succeed at this. 2007 is when I became a part of Advocare, and I really did lose some weight that I had been struggling to lose after I started using the product. But being a part of it, I started noticing things that I've come to learn are very cult-like. Like the way they bring you in, they just want you to sell the opportunity. You got to use the products. And you're constantly out trying to look and see who you can talk to. Well, that doesn't work for me. I live in Tennessee. 2007. Who was on his way to being elected? First black president of the United States. I started hating most of the people here. Because it's so white, and these people hated Obama, and I just started being like, first of all, I didn't like y'all that much anyway, but yeah, it made it easy for me to bow out, but I did lose a little bit of confidence, and I remember the pressure. Beachbody, we didn't live near anybody who got us into Beachbody, so we did a little bit of the drinking of the Kool-Aid, and at some point, my husband moved up a little bit, and we were just like, hell no, we ain't gonna make no money with this. And we went to one of the Beachbody conventions, and the CEO was like, yeah, I'm gonna hand this off to my son. And my husband was like, I ain't about to build this up for you to hand this off to your son. Forget that. I'm gonna do my own thing. But in just kind of like reckoning with like, I've been a part of something that's cult-like, I started learning more about these spiritual traditions and how much, not spiritual traditions, all of the new thought, new age type teachings, how much of it, Amway, baby, Amway, one of the biggest problems in the U.S. in my opinion, because it put out the blueprint, and it has created so much. I don't know. I just think you gotta do your own research. But anywho, in trying to get people to sign up to be a part of these pyramid schemes, initially it was very Christian, and that's what I found with Advocare. They were very evangelical, and of course I didn't fit in with that, so I just would be like, okay, well, y'all doing that, but I'm not. They're evangelical, and what time is it? I think I'm out here early. Yeah. And so it was initially kind of infused with evangelical. All the people who we like to quote, so many of them caught up in these MLMs, taking advantage of people, controlling people's lives. And then they start turning it into where you couldn't tell. Jim Rohn, I had no idea. You hear people talk about Jim Rohn all the time. Had no idea. This man was an evangelical preacher. Napoleon Hill. I never could get into Napoleon Hill. I used to think, what's wrong with me that I can't get into this man? Fraud. I found that out a couple of years ago. Total fraud. And so then I just started kind of feeling like I'm questioning everything. Even ancient spirituality. I don't know if I even fully trust any of it just because it's so patriarchal. But one day I just decided I'm waking up, and at the end of the day, it's all made up. It really is. We're all just here. It's all one big made up story. All of this. We know spirit has created it in some kind of way, some manifest way. But it's just a manifestation of our creation, our creative energy. Now I do believe this. We've all agreed that this is here, and that's why we see it. If we decide we're going to see something different, we'll see something different, right? And I said, none of this is going away, so I may as well teach it and be ethical. And so this weekend, there's a book one of the anti-MLM ladies recommended that gives a history of MLMs. Baby, if you've ever been into MLMs, you need to read this book. I don't even know the name of it. I'll make sure I link it if I post this video. But, oh my goddess. I'm going to tell you the history. I mean, it's a whole book on the history of these MLMs, okay? Some of them started in the like 1950s, 60s or something like that. And I think there's one that started even before that, even though the name may have changed a little bit. So I cannot give you the history. But what made me say, I really need to think about, I've got to teach people business and how to have your own business, is when that president won in 2016, things were loosened up so that these MLMs could take even more advantage of people. And I think because that person is back into office now, even that person has had so many schemy businesses. This country, the government of this country, doesn't give a damn if people are scammed. And it's like we haven't been fully taught to have your own business. It's like, get a job, which I love jobs. I'm gonna tell you right here, right now, baby, I have a part-time job working at a nonprofit. I don't know how long this nonprofit is gonna last. I pray it does make it through this hard time, economic time, and how the government is taking grants away. But I love having a job. I do. In my astrology, I could have jobs and do very, very well with jobs. I think jobs are great. I love the job security. My husband has a job. I love jobs. And by the same token, if you ever want to have your own business, you do have to have certain skills. You have to have a very different mindset, and it takes it's just a different way of operating. It's actually hard in some regards, especially when you're new, and we just haven't been taught that. And so these MLMs make you think you have a business when really you're just making money for people who are upline from you. And it's, the one that really got me was Amway. So it's like they're families that got started in Amway a long time ago, one of which is Betsy DeVos. Her dad had something to do with that, if you know who that lady is. I couldn't understand how this lady became Secretary of Education until I learned about the history of the DeVos in the United States. But anywho, that family has a leg or whatever. It's like maybe the Hargroves got started a long time ago, and we just have a very successful leg, and it's called a chain, and you just bring it. It's rock solid. It's got all this history behind it. Some of the people who started the chain aren't even alive, but their children or somebody's keeping it alive, and people are brought into it, and you're kind of taught the history of this chain or whatever, and how the money, when you come into it, it floats up the chain. They make the majority of the money, not the independent business owners at the bottom. And I think that those are going to become even more rampant because, of course, if this government continues with this, whatever it's doing, it's going to mess up the economy where, we're going to have a shift, is what I'm going to call it, in how people make money. I really do think we're going to kind of go back to a time where it used to be everybody kind of had their own business. It was like you had a skill and you used that skill to make money for your family. Or maybe you just raised your own food, Maybe you could build your own home. It was some type of skill you could have, and maybe you go use that for other people. I think we're moving more back to that. And so I want to make sure I'm a part of helping people go back to that versus getting caught up with these MLMs, which is just going to make a whole bunch of, I have to say it, rich white people. I love all my ladies who are here because I do have a few white sisters out there. Y'all know I love you, but y'all would say it too. They would say it. My white sisters, they would say it too. They would be like, yep, you're right, Tyra. Just a bunch of rich old white people. We don't want to make them rich either. So, yeah, I have to be a part of the solution, especially for women who are creative and spiritual. That's what I know the best. And you are more online, or you want to use the online space, I really do believe that I'm looking for a sign that I need to do that. Yeah, I'm looking for a sign. And I really want to make sure that with things shifting the way that they are, I have some of the greatest astrology of my life right now happening, but the world has it happening at the exact same time. We are living in a time that is one for the history books, baby. It's one for the history books. So we all are going to have to get used to this new way of living, and we all are going to have to open ourselves up to making money in a new way. And when you come from, say for instance, I'm African American, it does sometimes feel like we're a little bit behind the curve just because of being a part of people who didn't have the same opportunities as white folks here, but also as women in general. I think women in general, you know, my director was born in the 50s, and I think she had a different educational experience. Like, you know, when even I think I did different PE. The boys and the girls did separate, but like the girls couldn't even play sports back then in the 50s, right? I mean, it's been slow in coming. My son graduated from the Coast Guard Academy, and I want to say women didn't get accepted to the Coast Guard Academy until the 80s. The first black man got accepted in the 60s. He's still alive. My son was like, I want y'all to really think about that. First black man to come to the academy. Still alive. Still alive. So we have to go out of our way to learn how to have business and, you know, get ourselves shifted into making money in a different way and not feel like we can't do it. You have to be prepared for it to be hard. And baby, we got to learn how to use all this manifestation energy. It bothers me sometimes to even say things like that because I know how that has been used to manipulate people. But we're going to learn how to do it in a way like you figure out what works for you, I figure out what works for me. You don't have to do it my way. That's where I'm going to be different in these teachings. And then be out here in all this Orisha energy. Because one thing is for sure, you know, I can make a whole nother video about the Ifa tradition and how we don't exactly know what's true and what's not true. I believe that a lot of us are going to have to rebirth. Yeah, rebirth the ancient knowledge that has been lost. But at the end of the day, nature is nature. And the teachings of ancient people. I love the ancient Egyptian traditions and teachings. And I want to resurrect the goddess tradition. I think that's really important for us to resurrect the goddess tradition. And I also want to, I love like Buddhist, whatever it is. But nature is real. It teaches. It teaches. And to me, I'll never forget when I took Manifestation Babe, Catherine said something that I find to be true for me. Business is almost certainly 90% what's going on the inside of you. 10% strategy. Might be 80% what's going on inside of you. 10% grit, baby. 10% grit and bravery and courage. And 10% strategy. All right, I think I'm complete. If I share this, thank you for watching. If not, Tyra, do something with this video. Peace and love.